Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone, and welcome back to the live stream classes on the Kena Upanishad. We will resume from mantra number 4 today. So we have been studying the Kena Upanishad, and this is one of the most profoundest Upanishads, as you know. Before I begin, I would just like to tell you that in case I cough slightly, please bear with me, because you know very well the very severe pollution levels in Delhi. But anyway, we are trying to continue this because a study of this Upanishad on at least every week once is so very important. It's a kind of nourishment for the soul. It renews our mental energies because it is talking about the core reality, existential reality about our being. So this is the marvelous Kena Upanishad, and for those of you who are very enthusiastic about this literature and who understand to what an extent the Upanishadic literature has framed our cultural values, our spiritual values, you will really find this study very interesting. The Kena Upanishad has marvelous ideas, deep-rooted research on consciousness. You can call it consciousness studies, and it has a beautiful story at the end pointing out to all this. So we will resume from the 4th mantra. Please keep the text in your hands, and we will go mantra by mantra, and we will go deep into the meaning of what they are trying to tell us. So the 4th mantra is Anya Deva Tadviditadatho Aviditadadhi Iti Shushruma Purvesham Yenastad Vyacha Chakshire. Anya Devo Tadviditad Atho, which means it is Brahman, the reality about this existence. It is very different from all the familiar known things. What does this mean? So first let's go through the word meanings, and then we will go into the explanation. Aviditadadhi, it is beyond even the unknown things, unknown objects of this universe. So it's beyond the known and the unknown. Iti Shushruma, thus we have heard. Purvesham, from whom have we heard? From ancient teachers. Ye, who, na tat vyacha chakshire, who explained this to us, who explained Brahman to us, who made it known, available to us, to our experience. Thus we have heard from them that this Brahman is apart from the known and the unknown things of this universe. So you see, now this mantra is quite enigmatic. It is beyond the known and the unknown, they are telling us. So what are the known things of the universe? Please think and see. What is it that we call known? That which we can grasp through the senses and the mind, isn't it? These are the mediating factors, the senses and the mind, and of course all the equipment that goes with it, the hardware, the brain, the capacity of our neurons to transmit information, our ability, the ability of our brain to interpret that information, the entire processing that takes place, all of this, through this we get information and knowledge. But that is why the objects of the world are known to us in these ways. But this Brahman cannot be known through the senses and the mind. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha, which means from where your very speech and mind return, being unable to touch that truth. So it is not possible through the senses, yet it is that factor which enables the senses to function, which enables the mind to function. See, they are tracking the core of the conscious experience. As I told you in the introduction to the Kena Upanishad, they are tracking the core of your conscious experience. And that core or that source of the conscious experience is what is called consciousness. And pure consciousness, Brahman, that is the very substance, the very element of existence. That is the core existence through which everything else is existing. Everything else is manifested. It is through Brahman that you know. It is through Brahman that you see. It is through Brahman that you hear. So this source factor we never pay attention to, isn't it? Because we are so preoccupied with objects and thoughts. They take away all our energy. See, this is the realm of Prakriti, the senses and the mental world. This is the realm of Prakriti. Prakriti has totally engulfed our being, and we know through her. And thus the world appears as a known thing, the known world of objects. But Brahman, the core factor which enables this knowledge, that is far beyond our perception through the senses, isn't it? And far beyond your processing through the mind, far beyond the functions of your brain, the neurological activity in your system, far beyond that. So naturally the senses are turned outward, the mind is turned outward. That's why we don't get an inkling of Brahman. And that is why not just not known, it is also beyond the unknown. Which means there are many things. Today if you go to astronomy, there is a known universe, there is a huge part of unknown universe. That which you cannot see, which you cannot track in any way, which your cameras have no access to. But there is an unknown universe. So this is not in that sense. It is beyond the unknown, that is why they are saying. Because you cannot use any equipment to track it. It is that which enables every equipment to function. Consciousness is like that. That is why the importance of sadhana. When we use the word knowledge, usually we have what we mean by the understanding brought to you by your senses, by some medium. Now the understanding of Brahman cannot be brought to you by any medium, obviously, isn't it? It is the truth about awareness. You have to feel it in your system. And for that, the system must function at a particular level. It must be enabled to catch that experience. That is why sadhana. I always insist on this, that you will not understand much about the Upanishad or Advait Vedanta without sadhana. Although that is the reality which is ever present. It is through consciousness that you are functioning. But if you want to know more about it, you must, to a certain extent, stop this activity of the senses and mind and track the source of your perception. So this is what they are trying to tell us. You see, it is beyond the known. Brahman is beyond the known and Brahman is beyond the unknown. And thus have we heard from whom? The ancient sages who explained this to us. This knowledge is only possible through enlightened masters. That is why the great Shruti tradition, the tradition of the Vedas, where enlightened rishis transmitted this knowledge from disciple to disciple, a whole lineage was created. Because what other way do we have, tell me, to get this knowledge? It's not available in the marketplace. It's not available anywhere. In fact, most of our youngsters have no exposure to this. They have never thought about it in this way. Today, a number of universities approach me for this knowledge in a scientific format. You see, this knowledge cannot be classed under any religion because it is the truth of existence, a scientific penetration into the nature of existence. So you cannot use any medium or means to come to it. It has to come by sheer intuition. For that, you have to tune the body-mind complex to a certain level. If that is done, you just know by yourself. See, when you understand a deep mathematical insight, when do you call it great math, you tell me? When it, in a way, unites or integrates a huge amount of knowledge and gives you a fundamental insight into something which organizes a great amount of knowledge for you. So, the knowledge of consciousness, the truth of Brahman is like that. It unites all and organizes the entire body of knowledge available to us through the senses and mind, because it is that foundation of all knowledge, that source of all which makes knowledge possible. So this can only be got when you have fine-tuned the body-mind complex, which is what sadhana is about. And that is why the importance of Vedanta, this literature, these texts, because the enlightened teacher will take it from this literature available to us. He is the literature actually. He doesn't need to take from this literature, because one who gets an intuition into this himself becomes capable of giving that intuition to another. So thus this knowledge has been transmitted, and thus we can gain this knowledge. This is being repeatedly told to us in all these mantras. You see, the other mantras are all connected. Please go to the 5th mantra. Yad vachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Again you see the same idea is coming in. Yat vacha anabhyuditam, that by which speech is expressed. That which speech cannot express, but that by which speech is expressed. Yena vaka abhyudyate, which means that which speech cannot express, but that which enables speech to become possible, to become a vehicle of expression. Tadeva Brahma, that itself is Brahman. Tvam vidhi, you should know. And na idam yad idam upaste, and not this which people generally worship. See, isn't it a very profound mantra? That which enables speech, but which cannot be expressed through speech. That is Brahman. Now, this is really a very profound observation, isn't it? You can express everything in this universe, everything that falls under the purview of your senses and mind, but you can never explain consciousness. It is to be felt, to be known. And that knowledge also is of a very different order. And that is why these expressions, again and again you will find that. And that's why he is saying at the end, it is not what is commonly being worshipped. What do people worship generally, tell me? Most people are only actually worshipping the senses and sense objects, although they may not admit it. But what you go behind and what you adore and what you draw to yourself, that is what you are worshipping. So for most people it may be a sense object. For some it will be an intellectual object. It will be some particular maybe understanding, some particular people. There are people who are so interested in maths that they put everything else aside before that. There are research scholars in physics who do this. And any deep level knowledge can absorb you completely. So there are people who are interested in the senses or the mind, mental states, mental thinking. But they are actually worshipping all of this, either the senses or the mind activity. But where are there the people who worship the self, who worship Brahman? So it is the nature of the sadhak to worship the highest, the core which enables the senses and the mind to function. So such rishi, when one gets a taste for this knowledge, then one becomes a rishi. One will pursue this even unasked, untold, because it becomes natural to one's nature. So that is why he is telling that which commonly people worship, this is not that. This is apart from that. So if we, please understand these are some of the laws of spiritual life. If we ordinarily worship only objects of senses, our idea of the Supreme also will be sense-based, isn't it? Our idea of God will be one who is abundant in everything that the world has to offer, one who is abundant in knowledge, one who is abundant in power. If we have worshipped something more than the senses, then it will be an abundance of knowledge, an abundance of mind, intellectual activity. And if we have learned to see beyond these two, the material world and the mental world, then our idea of God or the Supreme will be that which relates to consciousness. One who manifests full consciousness, he is Brahman, because he is consciousness itself. So now this is not an idea which is abstruse, it is abstruse only when we have no inkling to it. when we have not tracked the source of our senses and mind activity. But it is pretty obvious if you observe it for what it is. You see, in science as well as today in neuroscience, in physics, in what is called consciousness studies, this has cropped up again and again, that what is it that enables conscious perceptions to take place. So they have come to the idea that there is a unit within us which enables conscious perceptions through the instrumentality of the brain, mind and senses, and that unit is called consciousness. So consciousness studies is about tracking this. Now, so this is consciousness studies actually, Kena Upanishad. They are also tracking the same thing, but they understood that you cannot get it like a unit in a small finite form. It is the infinite, the nature of consciousness itself is infinite, all pervasive, omnipresent, all knowing, because it is consciousness. Consciousness does not get limited by a body and mind. It expresses through a body and mind. It cannot be limited by anything. It is unlimited. You cannot put limits on it. You cannot even put epistemic limits on it, like time, space and causation. It is far beyond that. So how can it be known? It can only be known by an expansion of your awareness. Just now, awareness is entirely focused on body and mind. And we think that's great. That gives me an individual experience. But there will come a time when we understand that you are cramped sort of within a body and a mind, and you can't function outside of that. So then comes the sense of freedom. You see, this Vedantic literature is directly related to freedom of the soul, isn't it? Vivekananda used to use that word again and again. What are you trying to be free of? You are trying to be free from all limitations. When we understand sense experience is limited, mental experiences are limited, the epistemic limits, so you see they're very, the way we describe time, space and causation is they are epistemic limits. They limit your epistemology. The way you know is limited by time, space and causation. So then this alone, consciousness or Brahman alone is beyond all limits. That is why this is supreme knowledge. You have to put down not just the senses but even the mind to know this. And yet there are ways to get that Brahmakara Vritti or an intuition of Brahman through the mind also, through the Mahavakyas of the Vedanta, heard from the lips of an illumined Guru. So you see, they are giving you all possible means to attain to this knowledge because it is so rare, so precious, and this is where finally human evolution is going to culminate. So they are giving us all possible hints on this. Each of the next mantras are doing this. Please see this. Each of the next mantras have similar ideas. Yan manasa na manute yenahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Yan manasa na manute. This Brahman, by the mind, it cannot be comprehended. Manasa, by the mind. Na manute, it cannot be known or comprehended by the mind. Yena, by which, ahu, the sages say, mana matam, the mind functions or gets inspired, gives us knowledge. Brahman is that which enables the mind to function, but it cannot be known by the mind. It is that which enables the speech to function, but it cannot be expressed by speech. See, they are telling us the same ideas again and again. Know that alone to be Brahman, which the mind cannot comprehend and which, the sages say, makes the mind function. Thus, Brahman is not the sense world that people worship. So, you see, very interesting. The very functioning of your mind. Please see how the mind functions. It functions through thoughts, and thoughts are based on sense intake. If you stop sense intake, there will be a kind of lull in your thoughts. They will stop. That's why we say, no, in meditation, what do we do? First thing is we shut the senses so as to control our thought activity. But our memories keep on generating thoughts again and again and again. So then now you somehow have to stop that overactivity of the mind, overflow of the mental function. That has to be somehow stopped. Why it has to be stopped? For the simple reason, you are trying to track the source of the mind. If a lake has too many waves, can you see what is at the bottom? You can't see. So also, if the mind has too many thoughts, you cannot know its source. So we are trying to control the mind. Through meditation, if this can be achieved, this much can be achieved, then you will get an inkling. You know, in sadhana, we proceed only through sadhana. We proceed only through the knowledge brought to you by the stilled mind. There is no other way to get first-hand knowledge. So when that stilling effect comes in the mind, if you can do it for a long time, you will understand your mind has tremendous capacity to just know without a medium. And that knowledge is by being, by touching the source of your being, what we call the self, which is Brahman. So you see, this instrument of the body-mind, in fact, it has been given to us in such a well-developed form so that we know this ultimate truth about human life. But how do we abuse it? How do we use it? We use it, we dedicate it to the world of the senses and the world of thought. So this knowledge, again and again they are telling us, you see, that this knowledge, it is not what people generally are worshipping. It is not in the sense world. It is not even in the mental world. Somehow you have to bring your mind into the state where you can intuit Brahman. So these are all important mantras, that which enables the mind to function, yet which cannot be known by the mind. That is Brahman. Again and again they are telling us the same thing. You see the next mantra, again pointing out to something like this. Yat chakshusha na pashyati yena chakshumshi pashyati tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Let me jump to the mantra after this also, because same idea is there. Yat shrotrena na shrunoti yena shrotramidam shrutam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. So you see, what is he telling us here? Yat chakshusha na pashyati. Brahman, yat Brahman, chakshusha, by the eye, na pashyati. It cannot be known, it cannot be seen by the eye. Yena chakshumshi pashyati. But that it enables the eyes to function. How is it that you see? In fact, if you want to know how you see, what enables your perception, you must watch the video Epistemology of Perception. It is there on Eternal Truth channel. It is also there on Vivek Vani. You must watch that video. How many things are involved in a simple act of perception? Now you are watching me. Do you know how many things are involved? Your senses, that's only the external crust of your personality. So from the physical, you go to the physiological. There is a center in your brain which takes what your senses bring in. The input is processed there. Then it becomes psychological. Your mind, your attention must be in place for perception to take place. Then it becomes metaphysical. Because your awareness, you must be in full awareness for the perception to become possible. Otherwise, attention will not be in place. And finally, it is because you are conscious. Consciousness is there at the core of your being, that conscious perception becomes possible. So it goes into your existential aspect. So perception occurs across the physical, physiological, psychological, metaphysical and existential aspects of your own being. How can you deny this? In consciousness studies, they have come to this. It's called the heart problem. There's a huge gap in how we experience objects, in the understanding of that. Where exactly the gap is? It is here. See, we understand the process of how the senses take in sense impression. And then there's an inverted image on the retina that is carried to the visual cortex, and there you may be seeing something very vast, a vast ocean. Say you are standing on the beach and watching the ocean. You see that entire ocean which threw out a certain amount of electromagnetic radiation to your eye and which was captured by your eye and taken to your brain. How do you get the experience of that entire ocean? How can electromagnetic radiation produce this experience? This is the hard problem. How is it that I get the sensation, the feel of the ocean? How do we experience exactly? So this is where Yoga and Vedanta have tremendous contributions to make. Yoga will tell you, you have to create unless there's a vritti in your mind of the object of perception, you are not going to get an idea of the object of perception. And Vedanta will tell you, ultimately it is awareness that lightens or you can say illumines the vritti, which makes the perception of the object possible. So without consciousness and the mental vritti, no perception is possible. Please watch that epistemology of perception because it's a very important video. It will tell you how this entire process is seen in Vedanta, and it will give you a clue to the deeper aspects of your own being. So that is why these mantras are telling us, you see, that your eyes cannot see that Brahman, but Brahman is enabling your eyes to see. So please take care. Please try to understand that Brahman cannot be captured through the senses. The next mantra also says the same thing with respect to the ear. It says, Yat shrotrena na shrunoti. Brahman, it cannot, by the ear, it cannot be known. But it enables, yena idam shrotram shrutam. It enables the ear to hear. But the ear cannot give you a clue of Brahman. And that is Brahman, tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. It is not what people ordinarily worship in the sense world. So you see both these mantras, I will read the word meaning, please follow me carefully. The seventh mantra says, know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot see by the eyes and by the power of which the eyes see. Brahman is not the sense world that people worship. The eighth mantra says, know that alone to be Brahman, which one cannot hear by the organ of hearing, and yet by its power the ear can hear. This Brahman is not the sense world that people worship. See, ultimately, don't get the idea that the world is apart from Brahman. The world is a manifestation of Brahman. But just now you are wanting Brahma Jnana, isn't it? The knowledge of the ultimate. That is why this slight distinction has to be made, that what I am seeing is not the seer. That is why we are making this slight distinction. Ultimately you are going to come to the knowledge that this world of manifestation is nothing but Brahman. It is a manifestation of that supreme reality. But to track that to its source, to a certain extent you require to shut out the seen, because otherwise you will get entangled with it. Isn't this true? The realized man also sees the same world, but his interpretation of it is totally different. Does he see a different world? It's the same world he is seeing, but he has become completely harmonized with it. He sees something more than what we see. While we see all sorts of multiplicity and duality, and we are against so many things, you see, it all starts from within. This very world gives bliss to one person, it is a horror tale to another person. It all depends on how we have cultivated ourselves, what we have become sensitive to. And ultimately, see, everybody asks this question in life. That is why so many people approach us. They want this knowledge in its purest form, as it is, and from the mouth of a teacher. That is why we do all these classes. But essentially, I am telling you, on an everyday basis, you must feel the core reality of your being, and you will understand all of this. Doesn't matter even if you don't attend the classes, you must feel the reality of it in your system. This is all that matters. The great masters of Vedanta, where, they have been very silent about the ultimate experience. Sri Ramakrishna would repeatedly go into samadhi, and thus people would know that that is the most covetable thing. Vivekananda, although he gave us a lot of lectures, in so many of his lectures he points out to this fact that religion is realization. It is not a metaphysical doctrine, it is not any kind of a dogma, it is not a made up thing, it is realization at the core of its being. So if you catch the essential thing, that is more than enough. Ramana Maharshi was totally silent about his realization. And only through, although there is a book called Talks with Ramana Maharshi, you can catch his state of mind through those talks. And that was totally silent. In fact, he used to say, speech is a safety valve for people of uncontrolled minds. So you see, through none of these faculties, you can express the ultimate. But there is a way of handling them so that they turn your mind within. Use them to that effect. This is what they are telling you. This does not mean that you will exclude the world or run away from your family or run away from your career. It does not mean any of this. You will penetrate into the core of your being using all this instrumentation. You will use everything as an instrument towards your ultimate liberation. So there is no question of running away anywhere. This misinterpretation of our great spiritual heritage occurred for many centuries, that unless you are in the Himalayas, you cannot get realization. Now, Vivekananda came and changed a whole lot of this. That religion is realization, and realization is something that happens in you. So change your equipment, change the way you see things, and you will have the ultimate. So this is the beauty of all these mantras. We have time for one more mantra. Please go to the 9th mantra. It gives us the same idea again. Yat pranena na praniti yena prana praniyate tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Yat pranena praniti. What he means to say is that by which the organ of, it's not actually the organ of smell. Pran means the vital force within you, and one of its expressions is your breath. So that which enables your vital functions, and yena prana praniyate, but that which cannot be known through your pran. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi, know that to be Brahman, and not this that people here worship. Now it cannot be known by pran, he is saying, but it enables the pran to function, the vital force within you to function. Then why are we using this vital energy to practice yoga and get into the state of realization? See, this is the question you should ask here. In many of my videos, if you have watched them, I told you there is a function between the vital force and awareness. Now you have to find out through your meditation if this is true or not. The actual fact is, awareness is completely independent of body, mind, pran, everything. This is the actual fact. It does not require anything for Brahman to be as he is. He is completely independent of everything. But what are you trying to do? You are trying to get the knowledge of Brahman. So without bringing your pran into harmony, you cannot realize this. But once you reach the other side, you know very well that Brahman is all that there is. Everything else is an appearance in that Brahman. But to reach there, this harmony in the flow of pran is required for meditative practice, for getting the knowledge of Brahman. This is the whole point. So you should not mix up the two. There is this saying of Rumi, which I often quote. I knocked and the door opened, and then I realized I was knocking from inside. So once you reach the inside, you will know you are only knocking from inside. And if the door was not opening, that was nothing but Maya. But that when you reach that state, until you reach that state, and for most of us, you know how we are functioning in the body and mind. So for us, sadhana becomes important. It becomes paramount, in fact, to understand that actually speaking, there is no sadhana. Reality is ever as it is. Truth is ever as it is. I must find a complete absorption into that. That is why sadhana. So please understand this. That is why I told you these mantras are so very profound. You take up something, some method which will take you into this knowledge. Once you have that knowledge, you understand that every method is superfluous. But until you reach there, when you are on the peak of Everest, then, every little struggle which you went through to reach there appears, nothing. Doesn't matter, the view from the peak is so wonderful, nothing else matters. So it becomes like that. But until you reach there, you know the effort, every bit of your energy has been applied to that, isn't it? So this is the whole point. You take up something which will lead you to the ultimate. Finally, you should know that Brahman is the only truth of existence. Everything else is an appearance in that Brahman, an appearance to which you have given a value, reality, and that is why it sort of possesses you. And that is why sadhana, to get out of this. So this is the idea which they are giving us. See, ultimately they have come to pran and manas and of course the senses. None of these is Brahman, but Brahman enables all of these to function. None of these can lead to Brahman, but Brahman enables all these to function. So they have brought us to this idea, and the first chapter concludes here. Iti Kena Upanishadi Prathama Khanda. So we have come up to the first section of the Kena Upanishad. Next class we will be taking up the second section of the Kena Upanishad. Now let me go to your questions, because they are so important for so many people. Let us see what questions we have this time. The first question is, sometimes it is hard to get Guru in person for guidance. In that case, how can one know progress is on right direction? Yes, this is pretty obvious. So many people have asked this, that we are not able to study under a teacher, we are maybe in a remote place, we are not able to travel anywhere. How do I know if I am proceeding in the right direction? So you see, there are milestones in spiritual life, and there are ways of gauging your progress. The first thing you should observe is, are you developing devotion to God, devotion to the ultimate? Do you have extra space in your heart for these elevating ideas, for meditation, absorption in the Supreme? Please observe and see in your lives if you have been able to prioritize the spiritual front. Because in our everyday life in the world, we are carried away by so many things. And sadhana is occasional, an occasional affair. So if this is the state of affairs, then you should know that you require more effort. Whenever we fail in something, please remember, it is because 100% effort was not there. So this is the way to gauge our progress. For me, is this the most important thing, the top priority of my life? This does not mean that you are not paying attention to other things. You have to do your duties in life, isn't it? But you will learn to convert that into a means. Everything will become karma yoga if you have prioritized spirituality. So please check this and see, where does your heart lie? What are the most important things for you in life? And another way of checking our progress is to see the extent of purity we have developed. See, this is the key factor. When we are talking of awareness and all this, it is impossible to come to any intuition of awareness without the system being pure. What I mean to say by that is, if you are inordinately identified with body, and if body consciousness prevails in your mind constantly, how on earth will you get an idea of all this? You have already invested that awareness and mental capacity into the body. So how on earth will you get an idea of this? So that is why a certain level of purity of body and mind is absolutely required. If you are a sadhak, you will know this immediately. Today we have created a culture which constantly impinges on your mind body consciousness. And people's energies are all going in, creating a facade for themselves, giving a picture of how nice they are, how beautiful they are, how adorable they are. Why do we seek to give such a picture? Tell me. Because the mind is invested in the body. Body consciousness is dominating. So this has to be taken care of. If you are a sadhak, you will understand this immediately. As long as we live only on the plane of the body, your entire awareness will function in that way only. You are only aware of the material world of objects, and body consciousness dominates in the mind. So a little reverse gear is required. When this is the state of affairs, Brahman, that's why you see the vast masses are not interested in spirituality. For the simple reason, they have no clue or inkling of it. They are happy with the world of the senses until, well, the world of the senses, its very nature is, it will teach you to go beyond it. It gives us blows in life, it is limited, it is never permanent, it is addictive. I have covered all of these aspects in my previous talks. So its very nature is, it will make you ask, what more is there? So understanding the limitation of the sense experience, this is what is important. That is why then you go to the next level, the mental level. There, try to see the quality of your thoughts. There also purity has to be achieved, which means thoughts are by their very nature positive. They are elevated. You are not just circulating body consciousness in your head. As long as you live on the plane of the body, you will only be engulfed by material desires. So a little beyond that. At least try to get absorbed in something elevating. Try to get absorbed in an intellectual activity or in reading something spiritual. That is the importance of these talks. At least at that level let us remain. And finally is the clarity of your awareness, which will give you the intuition of the highest. So this level of purity is required. See, the more truly cultured an individual, the more he will keep his system like that, so that his entire vitality, the force within himself is at a particular level. So now think and see what is required to be done to make this achievable. It must be always an achievable goal, isn't it? Today's modern life has, that's because we don't understand what happiness means, that we have brought it down to the sense level, that only getting this will give me happiness. How many cars and how many homes can give you happiness, tell me? If there's no peace within your mind, if there's no awareness within you, what can give you happiness? So it is for all of us to understand through personal experience. Nobody can teach you about happiness. You must know it for yourself. So these are the ways in which you gauge your progress in spiritual life. To what extent have I prioritized sadhana and the spiritual in my life? To what extent have I gained purity? If this sadhana comes to a certain pitch, you will find your guru. The right type of teacher will come into your life who will take you ahead in spiritual life. It's a law which Vivekananda also used to speak of, that what you are deeply in search of, somebody is there in this world to give you that. That is the guru in the spiritual world. And If you are truly yearning for spiritual experience, deep inner purity, the Guru will come into your life and you will recognize it also. So nobody is allowed to starve in the spiritual world. If you have the need, you will get the teacher. So create the inner conditions required for the teacher's power to work. This is what we should actually do. Live a life where the best will be drawn to you, isn't it? So this is how you try to get, you can't go out hunting for a guru, where will you hunt? And create the necessary conditions within yourself, and the highest powers of the universe, will start, they will gravitate towards you. So anybody who has found a guru has found it like this, please understand. And there is a guru for everyone, one who knows your soul, who knows your future. So these are the ways in which you can actually progress in spiritual life. The second question is, there's a conflict between heart and brain. One should follow the heart. What exactly heart in this case in deeper sense? Yes, Vivekananda also says this, that the merely intellectual, they get nothing. Because they are only circulating very logical thought forms in their mind. But the person with the heart, and I have seen this any number of times in my own life, that people who feel strongly and not just base feelings, whose feelings are at a particular level, they develop intuition very quickly. It's a deep right brain faculty which makes you sort of, it may make you a little non-linear but deeply affectionate from within. They can love deeply, and as a result they draw the best towards themselves. So the heart is always preferred to mere intellectual activity. But you must understand, when it comes to spirituality, it is the heart center that is being spoken of. When the heart center develops, the dhi develops. This one you call it the buddhi. It is not mere logical intellectual activity. It is the intellect gets inspired or inflamed by love, and it develops intuition, the capacity of intuition it develops. Intuitively you know everything. So this great capacity comes when the heart is cultured. Practically, what does it mean in our life? It means you culture only noble sentiments and emotions in your mind. Now, what is the help towards this? The greatest help is satsang. The media is very unfortunately not a great help in this, as you know very well. It will give you all sorts of, it will inspire all sorts of sentiments in your mind. So learn to understand, satsang is so very important. The right kind of feelings through perception of the right kind of objects is so very important for generating the higher heart, you can say, the deeper sense of feeling. Once you have this purified feeling well developed within you, your natural attitude will be that of seva. Seva is not it does not come by a philosophy. It comes when your heart is overflowing. Then what do? What can I do for you? I have seen such beautiful people. They are the most beautiful people in the world, Their very face radiates joy and positivity. What can I do for you? So they are so happy to help. They are so happy to serve. And it is these people who truly develop intuition and spirituality within themselves. So all these things go together. And it is not a matter of philosophy and understanding and logic. It's a matter of deep inner feeling, inner commitment, and seva. Then your heart will develop. And as a result, spirituality will come by itself. And mere brain activity and logic chopping, Vivekananda makes it very clear that this will get you nowhere. People who don't encourage the right types of thoughts and feelings in their heart, they are not going to come to spirituality. It is so simple. So take care of this. The third question is, when one is interested in spiritual knowledge, he or she no more enjoys social life. Why is it so? And is this normal? By social life, if you mean just partying and frivolous talk and activity, yes, obviously. These two are contradictory, isn't it? Deep spiritual knowledge which brings you so much joy, so much of inner peace and a sense of fulfillment within. That is in sharp contrast to mere frivolous activity, simply eating and dancing, and they are in sharp contrast. That is why deep spiritual knowledge will naturally take you away from frivolous things. So is this normal? Yes, this is normal. But I don't attribute all of social life to merely partying and these things. There are people who are doing deep service to society. They are also part and parcel of social life, but they are doing it out of an understanding that this equipment is meant to serve society. Any number of people and organizations I can tell you who are doing this. They also have a social life, but you can take the Infosys Foundation as an example. They are also part of social life, but they are contributing positively so much to that society, isn't it? It all comes from spiritual growth. If you don't pay attention to this system, you will not come to that level of contribution at all. There is nothing frivolous about them. They are seriously and positively impacting society. So this is only enabled when you have grown from within, when spirituality has come into our life. So don't think that you have to hate the world and then only you will become spiritual and then you will keep them away from you. No such thing. When you evolve spiritually, initially you may have to keep a little distance. Initially only. After that, you form such a philosophy right within yourself that you will only contribute positively. There is no another in spiritual life. It is me in another form. How will I treat me in another form? See, when you have young brothers and sisters at home, even if they do something wrong, it's okay. That's what you would say, isn't it? It's okay because they belong to me. So that kind of a feeling comes. This is real brotherhood. With spirituality, please remember equality, brotherhood, and sense of unity. All this comes naturally. It need not be imposed. With the growth of real spirituality, all this comes naturally. And one can never think of harming another to achieve one's ends, isn't it? That which does not foster unity and brotherhood, how can that be called a religion? So the essential thing is this, that it brings us all together. It fosters this. So please remember, spiritual life must ultimately result in deep contribution to society, using your body and mind to bring good welfare to others. Otherwise, your spirituality is not worth the name. So I hope you have understood that these two, they are contradictory only in the initial phase. Later on, you learn to accept things and contribute only positively. In fact, you will transform them. Those whom you were not liking or keeping away from, you will get the capacity to transform those individuals. But yes, in the initial plane, in the initial stages, try to keep away from the merely superficial for your own development. The fourth question is, how one can live with someone who is opposite to the scriptures and extremely attached to the material world? Oh, this is such an important question, because many people are simply suffering their relationships which they themselves have made. At some point in your life, you didn't understand the importance of spirituality and you entered a relationship which is supposed to be lifelong, and then you start suffering after a certain time, and you find that the other person is, the spouse is maybe totally dedicated to the material world, and then what to do? Now we are not able to get along well. So that is the question. So what to do in these circumstances is, see, if you build up your inner life to a certain level, you will get the power to change minds around you. Try to culture this. I know it is very difficult, and circumstantially it can be very difficult, but there is no other way. The solution does not lie in divorce. The solution does not lie in putting out other people from your mind. It lies in growing spirituality within oneself, evolving spiritually, so that everyone at home understands that your energies are at a different level altogether. So this capacity you will gain by, I always told in many of my classes, that keep a particular place in your homes where you can practice spiritual discipline, where there is less noise, where you have your moments of calm, where you can be with yourself. And you must be prepared to let go of your comfort zones to make all this happen. If you can do these simple disciplines, it will affect everyone in the house. And if you have children, please take care to give some of these sanskars to your children. That's the greatest gift you will be giving them, because the habits you lay down for them, they are what are going to shape your child's future. So make this contribution. If somebody is extremely attached to the material world, and if you start hating that person, hating and anger and whatever negative emotion, it only affects you adversely, isn't it? So understand the situation and radiate positivity to the extent possible. To the extent possible, without getting into direct quarrels and conflicts, to the extent possible, try to radiate this. It is extremely helpful if you are in a cultural situation where this is supported. I again repeat this. If you are in a place, I have seen this in places like Tirupati and Guruvayur, all these places where the entire culture of the city or village is supportive of spirituality, it is supportive of spiritual discipline, and so it has naturally prioritized certain things. But to be in a place where this is not at all supported is very challenging. But it can only be done if you are very intense in your sadhana. And of course, pray to God that they make the whole family understand. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say, let me quote from the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that one who sincerely loves God, everybody will come to a point where they will fall for that person. They will start obeying that person. Which means this, what I am saying, if you have sincerely loved the spiritual ideal, then everything will fall into place. Try to do it and see. The last question is, can the Gayatri mantra be chanted by all, or it can be done by person with sacred thread only? So that was the traditional idea, that only a Brahmin can chant Gayatri mantra, but it is no more the rule. And anybody can chant the Gayatri mantra, only you must chant it with discipline, at a proper place and with a proper attitude, not chanting it half and then leaving it off, or eating something and chanting. Don't do such things. The Gayatri is a mantra which opens the higher intelligence, the Dhi Shakti. It is a prayer for Dhi from the Supreme, so that the Supreme can be known. So this prayer is open to everyone, because this is the actual hankering of everyone, which we have diverted to all sorts of objects in the world. But everybody is actually asking for this. So understand this within yourself and chant it, but with understanding the sacredness of it, you must maintain yourself like that before you do this, isn't it? Do it with a certain sense of sanctity around you. And anybody can chant the Gayatri mantra. Who is a Brahmin? One is a Brahmin by one's thoughts and actions, not just one who has put the sacred thread, isn't it? Of course, those who have worn the sacred thread, they have a whole tradition of living life in a disciplined way. So it is advantageous to them. But for those who have not had that advantage, within yourself through a fixed will, you must generate that same level of Brahminical qualities within yourself. Vivekananda used to say the Brahmin is a state of mind, and that you must aim to attain. Then you are a Brahmin. A state where there is only positivity, only affection for all, kindness towards all beings, where you are deeply devoted to God and the godly, where you are sensitive to the scriptures, where you are deeply into sadhana. That is the Brahmin. That state of being is what is called Brahminhood. So it's not something just to do with that ceremony and today living a berserk life and doing the ceremony and claiming you are a Brahmin. It's not like that. It's a state of being. So attain to that state and you are enabled naturally to chant the Gayatri. Understand it this way. The Gayatri is open to all. If you are in the right state, Gayatri will work like magic for you. Otherwise, it will not work for you. So this is the answer to the question. I think we will stop here and we will continue again next week with the Kena Upanishad. Thank you very much. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.